Well, I've got George Nichols here. You are the president of the American College of Financial Services, and it's so nice to have you on our show.
Well, it's an honor to be here, so thank you for having me.
Thank you. So I'm fascinated by the college, what you guys do. What's the mission?
Sure. You know what? It's funny. We're 100 years young, is what we say.
Oh, I like that.
All right.
And I'm younger than that, so I'll take
so
it.
Look, it's great. That's right. They're like, I'm a part of a 100-year-old institution. They're like, wow, you're not that old. I'm like, thank you very much.
Yeah, right.
The college was founded on applied financial knowledge, ethics, and benefiting society.
I like that. Yeah.
And we have never deviated from that. And we believe that people's financial security and well-being is helped and influenced by a really good financial advisor.
Yes.
So our ability to benefit society is by educating, making advisors more competent and more confident in their business and their practice in order to serve their clients.
Oh,
that's what we do. And the beauty of it is we are the only independent, private, accredited educational institution that's clearly focused on financial services.
Right. That's lovely. That's great to hear.
It's pretty
so
cool.
CFP designation, Certified Financial Planner designation, is kind of one of the top designations in the industry, and I assume that you guys are hoping to pump out more of those.
Yeah, so we are one of the providers of CFP, obviously.
Yeah.
And then CHFC is a part of that. COU would be a part of that.
Yes.
And where you say that CFP is probably the largest, most aware, but the fact is COU is the oldest.
That's the oldest,
financial designation in the country. That's what started there at the college.
Got it.
So our philosophy is those are foundational programs. That is, we teach comprehensive financial planning, and you can get that through any three of those designations. Where we strategically have said we want to go is how do we specialize?
Got it.
All right.
Yeah.
And so think about a doctor. Everybody's could be a primary care physician, and you sort of get the basic training of general medicine.
Right.
But those who are most successful, those that we think not just perform well but are financially rewarded, are those who specialize, whether it's heart, cancer, or others. And for us, it's retirement, it's philanthropy, it's wealth management, it's special needs, it's taxes. Those are the things that we believe are specialized, and they will allow an advisor to separate themselves from what is the basics or the foundation of financial planning, which is just that comprehensive financial planning structure.
So we're at the Horizons Conference in San Diego. You guys put this on. So tell me about why that was important for the college to do.
So our three strategic focus areas are, one, specialization, again, what we just talked about. Two, is that even though retirement is in that specialization, it is so important to America that we said, you know what, we're going to pull it out, we're going to double down, and we're really going to dig in, and we want to be the premier place that you think about when you think of retirement education. And so that was part of that. And then the third one is representation. How do we actually grow the profession? For us, this retirement thing was so big, so important. So when we think about what we had to do, there's a couple of things. First of all, we have RSCP, our retirement designation. And the objective was, how do we strengthen it? So we've done a lot of revisions over the last, I'd say, 12 months that are being rolled out now, part of this conference, for advisors, and I think they're going to love. One of the things when you think about educational institutions is, well, how long do I have to go? Well, one of the things that we've made changes to is you can actually finish one of the courses within 5 weeks if that's how good you are.
Oh, really?
And so it's really addressing the flexibility for the students and the advisors that come to us. So that's a part. The second thing is that if you are part of CFP or CHFC, then you only have to take 2 courses instead of 1 for that. So first part was, let's deal with the programs, all right, programmatic. So then we said, well, what if someone like us, which is probably the only group that could, if we could bring in all these practitioners, all these PhDs that specialize in retirement and put them in one place over a few days and have this event that was designed for retirement specialists by retirement specialists.
I like that.
Then we think we could do something really unique. And so this is our inaugural event.
Oh, it is the first time.
So this is the first time.
Yeah.
And it's sold out, which blew us away.
That's
for the first
great.
time doing it. And I think one of the funny things is, I've had people walk up to me and say, George, I just want you to know, this is the first time I've ever been to this event. And I'm like, really? It's my first time too.
That's a coincidence.
It is. But they're so impressed with how we pull this together, the content. The other complaint that I've been hearing over the last day and a half has been, are you taping all the programs because I can't get to all the workshops because they're all the ones that I want to go to?
And some at the same time,
That's right. So I really feel like that we've achieved what we set out to do of like, people want to be here.
Yeah.
And people are engaged being here, and they're getting content. And one of the things that we're saying we hope that they would feel is, if you come here, I expect when you leave, you've already got a list of things that you're going to carry out to do.
Right.
Because you learned something. And I can't tell you the last time I went to a conference where I learned anything. So,
and
it's pretty cool.
You picked San Diego in early March, so that's
not
a bad idea.
I don't know. We thought about a colder place, and then someone says, "Oh, why not the sun? Why not the beach?" So that sort of came up. Even though I heard last week it was in the 80s, and we had a couple of cool evenings. But you know what? Even with that and the sun and the surroundings, it's really
it's still
place.
Nice.
Yes.
You talked about specialization and why that's so important, and I completely agree with you, and especially in retirement, because you think about some of the things people used to rely on, like defined benefit plans, are not very common anymore, right? And Social Security has its issues,
That's
right?
correct.
And so now it's like there's a lot more onus on the individual, and hopefully with an advisor's help, to make sure they get to where they need to get to.
And I'm glad you raised that, but I think there's even more that we are trying to get advisors to think about.
Yeah.
I mentioned this yesterday in some of my opening comments. You're an advisor. You have this really tough job where you said, I'm going to help someone with their retirement.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm going to help you plan out the next 20 to 30 years of your life.
Right.
All right? And we got this plan and everything, and I've got to help you get through whatever the number is. And how do we get to that number?
Sure.
But then I've got to help you get through all the twists and turns.
Yeah, because there will be plenty.
Okay, to get you someplace. But what I'm finding is the financial component of that transaction is probably going to be the easier part than the life component.
Right.
Of that. And so now it's the behavioral change. It's what am I trying to accomplish? What are my desires and my aspirations? And that's the part that really comes into this. And the thing is, until you really understand that, actually the transaction now gets more complicated, because I got to know what those are and say, can we actually fund that when we get you to this place of retirement? And the other thing that I thought was important to us is I totally get the industry saying, I want to talk to all those senior citizens, those people who are 65 they're turning 65 and they got this really nice nest egg.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, I've got 3 adult kids, and they've got great jobs. And so the first thing they come to me and they say, Dad, what do we do? And I said, okay, I want you to max out on your contribution that you can make, and then look at what the company match is.
Yeah.
And I want you to be aggressive, and I want you to stay in it.
Right.
Because over your lifetime, no matter what happens in the market, the thing is likely it's going to grow. Well, so the thing is, like most advisors are, I don't want that young person. Because it's just in one place. Well, those 3 adult kids are going to inherit whatever my wife has. So now we have this intergenerational wealth that's going to be transferred.
Right.
All those things are happening. And so this advisor is trying to figure out how I get through. Right. But if they're smart and they realize it, and I've got adult kids, they know that that's just the beginning.
Right.
Of something that can be very, very big.
I think that's true. I think a lot of advisors really, they don't focus on the kids, and they've got the parents for however long, right? Hopefully several decades,
and
but you never know.
Too.
Yeah, right.
Go when they go.
But then they pass, and then the money goes to the kids, and the kids don't have a relationship with them, and it's you're kind of starting over.
Fiona Gregg, that spoke this morning from Vanguard, she talked about this wealth transfer of $30 trillion that will be transferring to women over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I've heard the stat from 70 to 80% of women are going to change advisors upon the death of their spouse. And so just imagine. Well, I bet you that's even higher as we begin to look at the next generation that's coming. Now, I'm hoping my advisor's not listening, but like when one time we went to one of our estate planning meetings with my advisor and my kids were there and we were going through everything.
Yeah.
And so we were leaving and the kids like, wow, Dad, we really like him. Like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Do we have to keep him when you and Mom die? I'm like, what?
Do we have to? Yeah.
He's a great grandfather, I'm sure, to someone. But that's not who we want. And I'm like,
they want someone their own age.
I got to rethink of this.
Yeah, that's a good point. Now, so a lot of times when we think about retirement planning, we think about dollars and cents, but you brought up lifestyle and some of those other things, which I think is so important. So how do you go about teaching advisors and ultimately the end user, the clients, what do they need to think about?
Well, a lot of that we're putting into the content that we have in our designation, RICP, really thinking about, one, the behavioral component, because it's not just what we think we're planning for you, but we've got to sort of help you get to start doing it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a part of it. But then in some cases where I may not want to talk about it as a client, helping them understand, well, that's a part of the financial transaction.
Right.
Okay, so when we think about your spend, it's like, how do you think you want to live in retirement? Okay, now let's put a factor in that's called your health.
Right.
Well, that's going to be different. Well, let's think about what the pricing is of that.
Sure.
And well, do you actually take care of yourself?
Yeah.
Are you exercising?
Right.
So now I can get in a conversation about those things where that most people are just walking in thinking, where am I going to put my money for retirement? It's trying to actually begin to ask the right questions that get into that life journey that people are living through, and then say, okay, how do we fund that?
Yeah.
And what are the things that how are your parents doing? Do you think you're, as Celine said from Prudential, my 88-year-old mother's plan was sell the house and move in with one of my daughters.
Yeah, right.
Okay?
Got it.
Well, is that part of your plan? So it's those things, and trying to help advisors understand how to ask those questions where they're not offending the client, but if nothing else, tie it to the financial transaction and say, now how are we going to pay for these things?
Right.
To get them to think more broadly about their retirement. But we think it has to be in the training that we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's where that applied knowledge component of what it is. I mean, I always think about it as if I'm not making you better every single day, we're not doing our job in terms of being your lifelong learning journey partner.
Yeah, I love that. So you've been in financial services industry for a while. What are some of the changes you've seen over the years?
We don't have enough time.
Because it's always changing.
We don't have enough time to talk about it.
Okay, bullet points.
It is changing. First of all, I think I used to tell people that for some people, a bank account and a life insurance policy was the extent of financial portfolio.
Right.
And then people say, I want to get into investments. And okay, we do a little bit of investments. And then, now it's just gotten so complicated. What do you want to do alternatives? There's those private equity whole component over here.
Yeah, right.
And then all of the riders and all of the components that are on a mutual fund or an indexed product that you have, or it's just an index fund. You just name it. And so the product mix has gotten more complicated.
Right.
The pricing compensation structure has changed tremendously. I was talking to someone today, and we were talking about the changes in the type of leaders that organizations get, whether they're from banking, whether they're from insurance, whether they're from investments. I mean, they bring a different philosophy.
Right.
And all that's gotten so much more complicated in terms of what financial services is. And then when you think about the advisor, the advisor said, I'm going to work for a company for 20, 30 years, and I'm going to sell this one or two products, and that's it.
Yeah.
Well, you're not going to succeed.
Sure. Yeah. You got to evolve with it.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to ask you a hard question.
Okay.
So,
these are hard questions.
American College of Financial Services. So, I think one of the things you guys stand for is diversity, equality, inclusion. With the current administration, some of that seems to be under fire. How is this affecting, or do you think will affect what's going on?
Well, obviously, I think it's going to affect. I think every one of us has been impacted by, first, the Supreme Court ruling on affirmative action that relates to higher ed institutions. Now, on that regard, we are not a an institution that accepts federal funds, so I'm really not under the rule.
Okay.
But
Yes.
because we hire in and we're accredited by
Sure.
the same organizations,
Yes.
usually they're having a discussion with us. So
Right.
it is going to have an impact on this. What we are seeing and what we've made a decision on is we're going to follow the law and the regulations.
Right.
Okay. We're not going to. That's
Yeah.
not debatable.
Sure,
okay?
sure.
We're going to evaluate the potential reputational risk that may be for some people who either think we should be more like the Trump administration and say, oh, no DE&I at all,
Right.
or those others who say you ought to fight it. And then there's this recognition of we have to acknowledge this distraction, just the whole debate around it. So our decision has been, okay, we'll follow the law and the regulations,
Sure.
and we will address the narrative and the messaging of which we do. We will not deviate from the fact that in order to grow financial advisors in this country, we have to recognize that the new entrants, whether they be veterans, disabled, women, people of color, that there are going to be differences in how people learn.
Right.
And if we don't address that, we will never be able to benefit society.
Right.
And so we're staying the course, and we will. I mean, we have always had programs. Everyone's excluded. If we created a program that was for a particular group, anyone could still come to us,
Sure.
and that hasn't changed.
Sure. Okay.
But again, it's really more. I would say that we've addressed the narrative. We want to make sure we're always complying. But you can't. One of the beauties of this, in my mind, is women are the largest group in our population.
Sure.
All right, and we just talked about 70% of them going to look for someone else. It's probably like them. Okay,
Right,
so
right.
well, how are we serving women?
Right.
Because obviously, if 70% of them are getting now all of the money and saying, "I don't want to keep," we have to rethink how we service them. And companies, I believe, they're going to follow the money, so they're going to figure that out. So we've got to think about how do you bring more women in, and how do we train men to take care of women in terms of an advisor position.
Right.
We did a study on black women several years ago where we said their relationship with financial services. I will tell you, they have no relationship with financial services because they're not marketed to. But
Sure.
they were nuances that they were saying of like, if I were going to work with an advisor, I'd sort of like them to look like me.
Right.
Well, if we don't do those things, then I don't think the financial services industry can serve its constituents first. And the second thing that I think is most important, which is why I feel like we can stand very firm on what we've always been doing and continue to do that, is if you look at the population growth of this country, it's going to be more women and more people of color.
Yes.
So it's automatically going to happen.
Right.
So just as I said about RCP, that if you want to finish in 5 weeks, you can.
Yeah.
I've got to think about how is the best way to educate that new advisor coming in order for them to be successful
Right.
and keep this business going.
Right. I love that, George. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for your
man.
time.
I appreciate it.
When I grow up, I want to be like you.
Oh my God, you're in trouble, man. You're in trouble. Thank you for having me, and
right.
thank you for being here at the conference. This is,
It's-
you're making it. You're elevating our game.
Oh, it's
thank you.
been my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Awesome.